This is a special Victoria Rumble Room. We're doing something that we don't usually do. We are giving you just about live coverage of what's just happened in the BC election. John and I sat and watched the election results, and we rushed out to our computers so we could share with you our feelings about what we've just seen and what some of the ramifications are going to be. And John, a shocking outcome in the sense this has been so close, and it isn't really fully decided yet.
It isn't. There's at least half a dozen ridings within maybe 50 votes, with still more votes to be counted. So we might not know what's going on for a day or two.
It's
What we
46 NDP right now, 45 for the Conservatives, and two Greens. And one of those Greens is none of those Greens is Sonia Furstenau, which is a bit of a surprise in
yeah,
itself. But
yeah.
those numbers could change, John.
Okay, so what do we know? What do we know for sure? I remember when I predicted several weeks ago, I was pretty confident that this so-called independent vote, which really was the old United vote, angry, staying independent, would make a difference. Well, they sure did make a difference. None of them got elected, and they all pulled away from the Conservative candidates. So
But it
that's,
really only made a big difference in about 5 or 6 seats where there
eh?
were strong BC United candidates running as independents, and it made the difference in terms of the Conservative losing in
Yes,
places in the Okanagan and in the north and even
yes.
on Vancouver Island. That made the difference. So we didn't see any independents elected, but definitely they were felt across the board, but particularly by the Conservative Party.
Oh, they'd be right now a majority if those folks had either become conservatives or so a story will be early September, the transition from a dying United Party to conservative. That will be a story. A second story is that the Greens most likely hold a balance of power with no leader elected.
And what do they do with that balance of power? I mean, how does that work? Somebody has to sit as a speaker from the ruling party. I mean,
Right?
we're going to be in a situation where it's going to be a lockdown situation at the legislature. How are they going to get anything decided? And could we be back in another provincial election in fairly short order?
Yeah.
All of these things to be uncovered. And we'll have more chances to talk about this because on Monday, we are going to be bringing in Dr. Mike Prince. Michael Prince, of course, from the University of Victoria, longtime political scientist, and we've had him on the program before. We are going to dig deep on the various ridings, the ramifications, what David Eby can and cannot do if he decides to stay on as a premier under these circumstances, and what the terrain is going to look like in such a tight environment. It'll be fascinating.
It'll be fascinating, and it continues to provide extraordinary fodder for the Rumble Room. We have a U.S. American election within 2 or 3 weeks, quite possibly in the short term here in the next 6 to 9 months, another BC election, most certainly another Canadian federal election. Yes, sir. Dial into the Rumble Room.
Right on. So this is going to be our holding place with this particular show. If you're watching us, this is going to be out for Sunday and Monday until we get Michael Prince and his thoughts on the election. And then that's what we'll carry this following week as we continue our coverage of the BC election scene. So all I can say right now is rumble on.